So this is the eighth show, this new platform.
Yeah, yeah.
Let's see. It looks like it's catching. Yeah, it's good. Okay. All right. Okay. There it is. Yeah, it's good to go. And let me just check it on the phone just to make sure that we're good. Boom, boom, boom. There it goes. All right. Yeah. So yeah, okay. Welcome to episode 008. Daniel Dieli.
Yeah.
Dealey? Did I
Dieli.
say it? Dieli. Okay.
Yeah.
Daniel Dieli. It's a brother that we connected beginning of January when I was putting out feelers for this men's group, and had a lot of people. There was a lot of exchange, um, and I we didn't really connect. And then when I put the call out, I think to have some real conversations, you were one of the first ones that you know came across. So like, let's do it. So welcome and thanks for stepping up and stepping into this space with me and everybody else that's here. Not really knowing what we're gonna do here, but
Right.
this is basically the title of the show is the name of the show. Number 008, Daniel.
Thank you. Yeah.
So yeah,
Good to connect, man. We're just connecting, getting it done.
yeah. I guess we met on the uh proposition of um taking another look or seeking a different perspective on the masculine as males in form. And I can't, for a minute think that we're the only ones or the ones that, interacted in that group. And not, and I can't think for a second either that it's not actually going on in everyone, regardless of your form and gender. We're talking energy here. So I don't know. It seems like that'd be a good place to start. Where are you at with that? Uh, I don't mean to throw you under the bus and put you first, but but
Eh,
yeah, what's your take on all this talk, all these years, masculine, feminine, and polarities, and everything that's happened. I mean, have have what are your views on masculinity being a male in form at this time? Has anything changed? When did it change? Um, I don't know. Maybe you can get us started and we'll just go from there.
the first thing that comes to mind is just the imbalance of control and how much imbalance there is just off the number count of who's in control. And it's getting a little better, and Um, my belief is just that without these, the full balance of the divine masculine and divine feminine, that we're not giving ourselves the whole picture and we're not looking at all the answers. Um, yeah, and being male informed, like you said, I'm actually from two very strong parents, and um, but I tend to go with a little bit towards the feminine side with my energy, and that's just through time of learning. I feel like learning to listen a little bit more and not being so I'm gonna do. There's a and I'm very close to my mother, and she's got an extremely powerful energy. She's done a lot, and she did her last career was birthing and delivery at the
Hmm.
hospital, so she was birthing babies for about 20 years, which is a lot. And anyway, but she used to take me to school on her motorcycle, you know, um, and pick me up, take me home, and she was a very powerful lady. She is a very powerful lady, and I think a lot of us are getting to that point to where we're starting to look at how we took advantage of certain things from the divine feminine, and hopefully most of us are, recalibrating and getting rebalanced, and making some amends for some of the places we've been wrong, and vice versa. I think it works in both pictures of,
Yeah.
both sides of the story of people taking advantage of each other. So
Well, I mean, that's the only way that the realm worked. That was the process in which it worked. But I like what you said earlier. As these things get drilled down now, and I guess you can't go any deeper than that. Be it a son and his mother, or a father and his daughter, or there's so many different examples. We often think that they've got to be romantic, scenarios, but control. It's for me, it's like there's certain things that are drilling down to the human soul, the soul that's human, and it doesn't matter what your gender is, because it, to your point, vice versa. I think that the disadvantage or the challenge or the unconscious and unknown part was, typically speaking, not always, but typically speaking, the feminine didn't know his path
Mhm.
and he didn't know hers. And if you look at the collective behavior, the collective representation, and I think you just alluded to this a minute ago, the majority presence was feminine in these groups. And if you look at that, say that's two people, a man and a woman, stereotypical, who would be the first one to emanate their feelings, it would be the feminine side. And so I kind of see it that way now. And as the masculine side is starting to dig down and take that moral inventory, you know, um, that energy and all of us is discovering things in itself. That's kind of been, to me, has kind of become the wild card of this whole transition as we kind of put the cherry on top. Because I think we all know that there's a unique force in the masculine energy, but we've only seen the distorted part of it. And I have no idea
Yeah, in
what, I
this
have no
life.
idea, right? I have no idea how it works or what it's going to look like. But I can feel it all along. I could feel it, like a part of me, all these parts of us that are dying, but there's a part that doesn't, like the soul and maybe the attributes or characteristics or the makeup of the soul.
Yeah, yeah.
So, control and judgment, to not control, or to surrender is the opposite of control. Everybody talks about surrender, and judgment is judgment, period. That's an ongoing uh, awareness that's becoming more and more refined, like everything else. And we can't go wrong moving into non-judgment. It's just how do you do that?
Yeah, right,
One
right.
by one, right?
Yeah, yeah.
So how long have you been plugged in, would you say?
Oh, so when I got um into yoga and the Yoga Sutras, Patanjali, and that was about uh 20 years ago, I would
Okay.
say. And I was really into it, really into meditation, and um would call that basically the start of the awakening, and what kind of happened was, as I was pretty introverted with it, and as I started to reach out, the platforms we have today weren't there, and a lot of people weren't interested in it and didn't want to hear about it, and especially anything that had to do with, checking your moral self and all that, and which a lot of the yoga philosophies tend to go that way with do some self work. And so I just kind of did my own thing for a while. And then, like a lot of people are saying around 2019, 2020, I think everybody clicked. And some of the people that had some experience with the spirit, really clicked and woke up. And then the platform started to open up with people like you and, Commander Victoria Lillenquist and a lot of these people that have been there and laid these foundations for us. Now we have these places to reach out and connect, and it's really a beautiful thing. I think there's a lot more of the divine masculine starting to come on board as far as opening up, because I don't know, in my experience, reaching out to people and talking to other guys about a lot of this spirituality stuff can be difficult. And especially if you know where they're at in life, and a lot of people that aren't there yet, you can't even bring it up. It's like you can be yourself, and if they see what you're doing, they might get interested. But you can only suggest to certain people and certain things, and talk about certain things with certain people. But it's starting to get better, man. It really is. And I would say even just from 5 years ago, it's just there's been huge improvements. But a lot of guys are still, I feel like, worried about expressing themselves because they're afraid of what people are going to say. And a lot of people are actually, I feel like in the corporate worlds, are afraid to speak out just because of their careers.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So,
Oh yeah, no doubt.
yeah. So,
It's an interesting development, we might say, and this is an apolitical statement, as in not political. None of it matters to me, but just in terms of the energy that's that's moving around the earth, and it's not just what's happening in America with Trump coming in that administration, but also in Argentina, um, El Salvador. There's and not saying any of them are perfect. I'm just saying, as we have been in these circles, and as we can also see through observation in many ways, the old patriarchal, which the masculine was a soldier for, is being deconstructed.
mhm.
It's dropping. It's fading away, and then you kind of have this flipping occur where you see still mostly masculine energy, but you see some feminine energy in there that's feminine, including Tulsi Gabbard or including Melania or the lady that there's a just got elected in Mexico, I think one in Italy. So there you can kind of see it, but um, going back to what you're saying, and having been in that environment myself, you call it the corporate environment, but it'd be the same structure with all of it because it's all
Sure,
patriarchal.
sure.
I'm not in that situation now, and I haven't been for 15 or 20 years, but um, I would imagine that that would be a difficult situation to be in. It would be a new situation for a man. Like, okay, it looks like the sky, the clouds are starting to part, and the sun's coming in, and justice is coming. But at the same time, how do you move in this space? Because there's still a lot of echoes and
Mhm.
you know, tender spots still in the body from the interaction of the old. So I think that's kind of a good metaphor that you bring up. And maybe it could be surmised as, yeah, there's more coming and there's more here and there's more admitting it to themselves and even starting to talk to each other. But it's not only digging into this part of us that was hidden from all of us, uh, male and female, but also how do we function and how do we create simultaneously when we've always been the worker bee and the old methods are no longer applicable.
Yeah, 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 true. Um, everybody's going through the new changes, and Yeah, some people are utilizing it better than others, right? But we're all going through it. I mean, you can't stop it, man. Hmm.
True. It's very localized as the days go by. Like you know what I mean? Like it doesn't, I'm not saying it doesn't matter or it's not there, but doesn't matter what's these horrific things and these political things and these other things and these unjust, all these things out there that are going on. They're just, for me, and from what I can see, there's more and more unveiling in the mirror that we look in, every day and more so as the days go by.
Definitely.
It's
Yeah.
You mentioned your parents with really genuine and pure respect, uh, which is quite unique. Uh, we've talked about that a little bit on a couple of these shows as we were starting this, and how that the mother and the father are the direct lineage, and it's more than a physicality thing. It's our DNA. But so your path may have been quite different than a lot of us, but do you have you gained a wider perception, even having the strong parents that you did as you progressed, specifically here in the last 3 or 4 years? Have you gained a wider perception of them as people, and have your connections with them, changed or expanded or anything?
Oh, yeah. I feel like, yeah, it goes on with time, but really I feel like I've always had a great respect for them as far as just uh how wonderful they really are. They both have huge hearts. They're both extremely hardworking, wonderful people. Now sometimes that hardworking and powerful can be really difficult to deal with. We get headstrong, and
Mm,
but at the same time, it's like, um, I think I had some great examples of, you know, especially with the divine feminine side of what the power of a woman truly is, and how incredibly brilliant and intelligent, most women are. And it's all across the board though. I'm emphasizing the divine feminine right now, but I feel like we're all becoming more aware of the true skills, abilities, and talents that are out there,
mm,
that are being suppressed or oppressed or self-limited or otherwise limited. And it's a beautiful thing to see. So I had some really great examples of what it could be. My father is two-time, second degree black belt martial artist in Taekwondo, karate. My mom was very athletic and strong, and fishing and motorcycle riding, sailing. She raced sailboats there. So
mm,
as far as people goes, they were a lot to look up to,
mm,
so but yeah, I feel like a lot of people are coming into that realization as well. I've been there for a while, but I'm starting to see that see it, and especially some people around me, as the lights kind of get brighter inside them, and they start to become more of a aware of just how incredibly powerful and wonderful their parents truly are, with and without the mistakes. It's like
mm.
we're all pretty wonderful beings. So yeah, and man, I run on grateful, or super grateful, but I'm really extra grateful for you, and that you've done this and got us out here talking and connecting. And a lot of the things we need, I feel like, as the divine masculine, is to, let down some of these walls and connect and take a step out. And sometimes it can be a conversation with somebody that, you're just at work with or something like that. And then the things you can find out are just like amazing, nowadays that if we're bringing up spirituality and multidimensionality and, equality, unity, harmony, and, and the extraterrestrial entities, there's a lot. There's a lot to connect on right now. And,
Yeah. Yeah. And the fears and the sorrows and the, the humbling moments, the admissions of being sold into the program and, you know, becoming, that part of the journey that ultimately is teaching our masculine side, you know, uh, the things that we peel back and say, I don't have to do that. And what's beneath it, but
yeah.
yeah, I go back to what you said earlier, which is just actually inviting an open dialogue because I have no idea what the answers are. Um, but I think part of what you're saying and what others are picking up on, we're all picking up on more is the obviousness of all this that we've collectively channeled and transmitted and shared over the years is actually, anchored in to a significant enough degree that we're seeing very quick changes on a physical scale. And they're coming quicker and quicker every day, which is pretty mind blowing in itself, above and beyond the personal things that we have to contend with within ourselves to find that peace and that wholeness that only we can do for ourselves.
Mm.
So it's like, yeah, I agree with you. It's we all showed up, and there's a lot to be said for that. It really is.
Yeah, man. Yeah, yeah.
You got some things written down there you want to talk about?
Yeah, I think you said something about topics in the chat when we
Yeah.
were chatting, and I wrote a couple things down, but they're pretty simple,
Cool.
and I just wanted to run a couple by you and see what you had to say about it. And one of them is, talking about, basic spirituality versus multidimensionality. And I've heard you talk about this, and but as far as topics go, I know that that can go a long way. I mean, we're still talking to people about basic religion, and there's a lot of people that are still tied to that. And it's interesting, like why I'm bringing this up is that I feel like there's so many people out there that are so close to crossing over into just letting go of some of those old religions and some of those things like that into a new life and into a new perspective. And
Mm,
we're getting real close to that. And so I feel like we're going to be explaining a lot of this fundamental stuff as far as what's the difference between just being spiritual and being having a multidimensional view and some of those types of things. So
mm. Yeah, that's a good conversation starter. There's a
yeah,
lot
yeah.
to that. You got more to it? Is there more
Um,
to it?
I'm hold on a sec. I'm
Oh, I didn't know if that no, that's enough in itself, or if there's more that's added to it as well. Um,
And another one would kind of be in that same realm, but and these sibling relationships that we have. I don't know, with the brothers and sisters. I have four sisters, no brothers, and so having some of these conversations with them, which I've been the one that's brought it up to everybody if I even bring it up, and I like to start with my family in particularly. I start with the spaceships and sightings and have you seen them? Have you ever seen any that kind of stuff before I get into the philosophy side of anything? So
mm,
that's always kind of a way for me to see if somebody's in the mood or if they're even, what they have to say about that if I want to take it a next step. But
mm.
So anyways, just yeah, how that relates to our siblings. I mean, leaving our parents out of it even, as most people have a certain relationship with their siblings, it's different from what they have with their parents. Most people, I would say. I'm a little different, but so yeah, I mean, I could think of topics to talk about all day. I just want to stay productive with you here.
Oh
And
no, well, this is great. The religion slash spirituality, um, the comment you made, which I think is relevant, because I hear it a lot from people, which is more and more people are waking up, and then also what you're saying is pretty much the same thing, which is a whole bunch of people on the precipice of waking up. And I think part of the process of evolving through what we've all come from, you know, awakening, and then the work starts, and it's been all these cycles and all this time. Part of that process seemed to be, oh my God, you know everything out there is not real. 9/11 and this and the JFK and this and that. And then it goes to, I want to tell everybody, be it your siblings or be it whoever. And I've said this for years. It's funny. I did it. People would come on 2012, 2014. You see it on Facebook. They'd say, nobody's listening to me. So I think that there's another cycle in it, and it becomes, um, well, I'm not going to feed the monster anymore and give my focus to all this BS out there, all the narratives provided the code to wake me up or whatever, but I'm not going to worry about the central bank. I'm not going to worry about this and that. And then the other one being to let sleeping dogs lie and stay in your own lane. Um, I feel like that's part of this new math and this new geometry in 2025 is, and as men, and I would assume as women and feminine and masculine, um, that, like, in other words, who am I to impose myself on you? If we're all equal and we're all connected to a beehive intelligence and there is no linear time, it sounds like we probably all get there at the same time. It just doesn't look that way when you're in the middle of this thing. And
yeah,
I said for years on the show, as we would contemplate all this stuff and talk about it, and I'd say, maybe not because I'm smart, but just because this is something we haven't looked at. Maybe we're all beating at the same vibration and we just can't see it and it doesn't look that way. I mean, who knows? But to see things from strictly a human perspective, I think we're past that now because this goes back to what you said in this first topic. What is the difference between, is there a difference between, or maybe what is multidimensionality and spirituality? Because if it's anything in my mind, it is um, a path to a greater awareness of what my consciousness is, my active consciousness, how I make decisions, how I lead my life, how I love, how I live, how I learn. Um, and if I'm not in a disrespectful way, but if I'm using less and less of my human slash ego, it's there, it's part of it, and an effective part of it. And I'm relying more and more on that round table of multidimensionality where every part of me has a voice, including this body. A lot of people are talking about the body now. Then that to me would be um, what we call, conscious living or multidimensionality incarnated or embodiment or spirituality. I mean, if it's making me better, it's got to be making the world better because the only way I can be made better is to be in that divine neutrality and not encroach on anyone and not give my power up to what was an illusion and put my money where my mouth is,
hmm.
and just try to be that. I say all that, and then will tell you straight up, I don't know anything anymore. And I mean it. Seriously.
Yeah, I think our human kind of peaks out at some point, and then we don't know, and then we realize that we don't know so much because there's so much to know, and it's like, oh man, it's a lot.
Yeah. So on one hand, it's like to my, I know a lot of us talk to ourselves. I do. Like, get a hold of yourself, you know, you know what I mean? Like I'm speaking to myself, like, wait a minute, who do you think you are? Like, so, and I hear that a lot in these last 2 or 3 months and I example would be, I need to share this publicly. This came in, and it's not that you do or you don't, but to have thoughts now of, well, what's the point? And who do I think I am? And we're having these really, really deep questions that we've never had, I guess is what I'm saying, and having to function at the same time,
Yeah.
right? In a new way with
Right.
that on your mind, you know what I mean? On your proverbial mind.
Right.
Uh, but it's, has it, um, has there been a point for you, and you mentioned 2020, and I believe we can all pretty much look at the energetics of the whole COVID episode, the energy of it, and how that really has served us in this expansion.
Mm.
Truth coming out, and individuality, and stronger bonds, having to be around people and not having a choice of, ducking out of the house, and kids
Um,
coming home and all. So
mhm.
that obviously was a big change that affected the consciousness of the world. But in your mind, has there been um, another noticeable shift at some point in the last year in your mind, or does it feel different now than it did in
Yes.
20? Yeah.
You mean as of now, definitely. I even think from December to, here we are at the end of January, has been a different 2 months than I've ever felt.
Yeah.
I feel like a lot of people are coming to that conclusion as well, that, energetically speaking, and when you're tuned into the energies and all that stuff, this has been an interesting last couple of months. I mean, 2024 was a heck of a year, right? And here we are in 2025 has already felt like a decade. I was kind of joking with somebody in a comment about that today. They made some post about 2025 being already had felt like a year or something like that. And
Mhm.
I said, "Oh yeah, it's been the longest decade of my life, you know." But yeah, and just I think understanding that we're part of a greater consciousness and that that's constantly evolving,
Mm.
is becoming forefront in a lot of people's lives, and realizing and becoming aware that we tap into this constantly in our subconscious and in our conscious mind, but we do tap into it, and man, it's a lot. It's like almost like you're saying, you're still having to function while you're constantly processing.
Mm.
And and then there's the contradictions that you live in, as far as like personally speaking. I have a very matrix job right now that there's some definitely good things that we do. Definitely the information, some of the information we provide is, medical and financial, but then there's the the full side of it, that a lot of that's going to change. You know what I mean? So right now it feels like I'm kind of walking some strange lines for sure. And anyway, but yeah, just consciousness is changing. It really is. And it sometimes some days are real rough as far as mentally, and Sometimes I feel like it helps to have kind of a normal. I work in printing, so it's just kind of a normal job, and it's like you can just kind of like blocks. It helps to tune in and tune out. You know what I mean? To
Hmm.
have some busy work.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. Like wax on, wax off, chop wood, carry. Yeah, really. I mean, there's some truth to that. Like if you have something you can focus on, doesn't mean you're not plugged in. It's actually meditative, I think is what you're saying. It's not distracting.
yeah.
Um, I mean, I guess it could be depending on the situation and the environment. But are you so you're in that atmosphere and then when you're not working, I'm sure there's other, be it like the yoga or any other thing you're into, family and such. Are you seeing are you seeing the change in all the places that you go to, like at work? Are you seeing things where people you wouldn't think, or a year ago wouldn't have said this or said that? I mean, obviously, a lot of people have changed their um, belief system, many belief systems, as a result of the whole COVID thing.
Hmm.
Um, but I mean, just in terms of people waking up that not aren't necessarily tuned into a show like this, or you know, I would say probably maybe signs of becoming more self-aware or maturing rapidly. I mean, I think there's got to be a level of human maturing occurring as we, uh, raise frequencies. It would only make sense. Do you see that though in the real world, as they say?
Um, y yes, but I do also see I do see it, and like sometimes like I'll bring something up with somebody and I'm real surprised that they're in tune because we'll walk by each other or I'll walk past them, for months and months and months and months, years, whatever, and then you like bring something up and some safe kind of, neutral way, and sometimes the response you'll get is just like amazing, like wow. So yeah, I do feel like there's still a lot of people still have their guard up, and again, it's like we look at it's like not everybody looks at me and sees me and maybe thinks that like yoga and spirituality. I mean, no, I don't think necessarily give off that vibe. But at the same time, we're all just learning to accept each other more and to kind of put the gloves down and put the guard down and just to say, hey, I am going to mention the airplane spray in the sky today to somebody and see what they say, you
Hmm.
know, or just
Hmm.
you just slip that card in, I don't push anybody like it's, to say, oh, tell me what you think of this or what, but like sometimes I'll bring something up and the answers I get are really surprising. Usually it's a lot better than I expected.
Yeah.
I think it's hard to deny everything that's going on the planet right now, and everybody sees it. And I mean, in all ways, and not just airplanes in the sky, all that stuff, and just like all across the board. What we're processing now, and especially over the last 5 years, is has never been processed. I believe
Yeah. Well, last
throughout
5 months, last 5 months,
this too, Todd. Definitely this too.
you know what I mean? Like you
Yeah.
mentioned December. Well, if you just go back to what, mid-December or say December 1,
Mm.
you got fires, earthquakes, hurricanes, wars, bullshit, corruption, da 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 da, uh, drones, UFO, UAPs, stupid answers, contradictory answers. There's
Typical.
still a tremendous amount of uh, divergent, I would say, messaging and presentation and hooks, maybe. I don't know, hooks, but yeah, I think certainly in these last few months, people, the information's just becoming bigger and bigger and bigger. um, in terms of truth, even when we feel like we know the truth, right?
Mm.
And we get behind this icon or that icon or this movement or that movement, but none of them are pristine. That starts with us, I think, and that's the maybe that's the trick. That's the way we set this up or something. I don't know.
Mm.
I would imagine, and everywhere is different. I would assume everywhere is different. I mean, I can feel the difference here in Mexico. It's a whole different vibration than places I've been. I mean, I could look at Hawaii or other places that have a say a natural or away from the big city type environment. But if I look and there's so many places too that are very powerful portals areas in California, I would say it's got to be one of them. Um, so on one hand, it's got this massive amount of people and blah blah blah, but there's always another side to that yin yang.
Yes.
With
Oh,
everything that's gone on over there, what's your take on, the general populace in that area? Given both sides of the coin, are they in fear? Are they in compliance? Are they in cognitive dissonance? Are they uh, on the verge of saying, fuck this shit? I'm not doing it.
I would say towards the latter there, definitely. I think a lot of people are just over it. I think a lot of people were clinging to old narratives and clinging to old, heroes and whoever, their military and their political figures, and it's all just dissolving right before their eyes. And a lot, so I just think a lot of people are over at this point and are ready for something new, and they can see, it's obviously a lot of people in California, and so a lot of people are just visually seeing what's going on in the world
Hmm.
on a daily basis. And so there are a lot of people you can tell that are just over it and ready for the new, and they don't know how to do that. And I feel like kind of like we're talking about people at work, or certain people can't bring things up with certain family members or
Hmm.
friends, whatever it happens to be. I feel like that a lot of that guard just needs to be dropped a little bit. And I feel like a lot of people are really fearful of the ripple effect that they're going to either have to give up a lot of stuff in their life that they're accustomed to, or they're going to lose people in their life that they have big commitments with. And that's a huge deal right now, too.
Hmm.
That's hard, certain people are in relationships, and if they start to get spiritual about stuff and they lose that capitalist drive or whatever it is,
Hmm.
they're going to have some repercussions from some of these relationships they're in. And so, um, that's natural anyways. There's, people are going to come clean and move on and grow and expand anyways. But, so, you know, I do think that with what we're doing here and having these conversations and people seeing the things they're thinking in their head, other people are talking about is helping a huge deal, you know.
Yeah.
Uh, yeah, man, for sure.
Yeah. That's a good point what you bring up. Um, I saw something, there's a lot of stuff obviously put out there in social media, and it's all, I'm not saying, this is accurate or not accurate. I'm just bringing up a point uh, connected to what you just said. So I saw this post, and I think it was Dolores Cannon, and she was talking about the first wave and the second wave. Um, and I probably have this wrong, but it's not the point. The point is what you were saying, and I'll bring it back there. So say there was a wave in 2010, 2012, and
Sure.
maybe there was another one, I don't know, but and another one hitting now. Like say post COVID, post the 4 years that that represent that. Um, and it would make sense that those individuals would, it may not take as long and it may not be the same right down to the nth degree, but that they would go through the same motions that we've gone through. Because if you look at these old shows, everyone said pretty much the same thing. And one of those things was, I woke up and I'm estranged now from my family, or I'm no longer in this marriage, or my kids don't talk to me, or so it would make sense with what you're saying that it's exciting to hear you say and other people say more and more people are awakening, but let's not forget what that actually comes with.
Can come
Uh,
with for sure. Yeah.
yeah. And on that note, even to just to give some some contrast, someone like you, somebody runs in, I run into someone like you, and I don't know you, and you're put together well, and wow, that dude's got it going, man. But I don't. I think we kind of, the grass is always greener. We kind of forget sometimes, especially when we're in the middle of the fray, that hey, they're still subject to the human condition. They have their ups and downs too. And so on that note, have
Oh,
you? The energies have been just what they've been. You made mention of it. When's the last time you hit your knees? When's the last time you broke down? You don't have to go to detail, but like I just curious as to, does that occur to you as it does me and some of these others? Do you have every now and then a dip? How does that work?
oh yeah, like the tipping point, and like people call it the tipping point, or yeah, exactly.
Mm.
The dip. Oh, yeah, I have some definite days where I feel like you said, you're like, why am I doing this? That kind of thing. Some of those days where I'm like,
Yeah.
yeah, but it's very few and far between, I think, like in the sense that I feel like the more you practice shifting your perspective back into gratitude, back into manifesting good things and imagining how those things are going to feel, and just really, it's tough, man. It really is. Um, the yeah, I still do. I really try to not yell, not to have arguments, but it doesn't work. We know that sometimes we get passionate, we raise our voices a little bit, especially if someone's already yelling at us.
Mm.
I'm really working on that, and just some of the people around me are going through some really difficult stuff sometimes, and to me, I'm a really good isolator. I can sit and meditate for hours and do this and do that. I play guitar. I have all these hobbies, blah blah blah. But I see other people going through some real difficult stuff that are very close to me, and sometimes they'll like freak out at me, and I'm like, whoa. I'm
Mm.
like, this is me, not that person you're mad at. So why
Mm.
are you screaming at me? You know what I mean? And it's like,
Hmm.
hey, there's all kinds of examples we could give, but yeah,
That's a great example.
yeah, that
That's a great example because I think part of becoming into greater awareness is awareness of our own projection. And, we can say a lot about our moms and our dads and our siblings, those people closest to us. I mean, it's true. We don't love anyone more, but we've been more pissed off at them than anyone else. You know what I mean? So you get both of it. But yeah, to be able um, to hear the truth, you know, like you were saying, sometimes it's not even about you. It's got to come out. There's a lot of that going on. It's actually just got to come out. It's got to leave the body. It's got to be expelled out. But yeah, to have the awareness, it sounds like, like in your situation where at one time you would have reacted this way, but now as time has gone on, it's less flammable,
yeah.
and even and therefore it's more effective and clear, even if it means saying nothing, which,
That's an excellent point.
yeah.
Excellent point, man. Exactly. And I'm glad you said that because that's another one where we're at. And I mean, I just had this conversation a couple days ago with my twin flame that
Mm,
sometimes that is the choice, is nothing, just to say nothing. And it's not easy. It doesn't feel great, but when you don't drop your frequency and you don't have to rise back up, it's a real nice thing. Or, all of the above. It's
yeah.
not always appropriate, but sometimes it's a great choice. So,
Well, sometimes I think parenting ourselves, we might want to take a cue from the universe as it's parented us. Um, I used to talk about in the early days in my own journey, the universal isolation, which isn't always a choice. And in those early days, finding myself in the universal isolation, uh, I didn't have anything else to do but look at myself, right, and think about things. And if it worked, then maybe it's something we can consider uh, when certain things occur. So, in other words, withdrawing and being in solitude and collecting your thoughts for 10 minutes, an hour, whatever it takes. Well, we haven't really given it a chance and we keep on giving it a shot. It probably will have some pretty good benefits. And I think a lot of us have started to experience those types of things because all of this talk that we've done over the years and the things that we come to me, only makes sense if we can apply it and we can actually put it into the field and the physicality and expand from it, grow from it, build from it, more alignment from it.
yeah, definitely. So, yeah, sometimes, the interesting thing when you don't say anything is that it usually takes care of the problem rather quickly because the conversation doesn't keep going on and on and on,
Mm,
So, if you ever need a quick way to say, "Hey, I'm not going to do this," that's a great way to do it. But yeah, and exactly, be the application of kindness, if we're
mm,
looking to be treated, I mean, I'm at the philosophy stage that you are me and I need to treat you how I'm treating me.
yeah,
Oh, and that can go a long way, and it can be overlooked too in the moment, obviously. But the great thing is that you get there and that you realize it's like, yeah, that's me that I'm treating that way. How would I want to be talked to?
right.
All of the above, and that'll get you a long way as well. But
Yeah, true. And we can't be the exception to the rule. You know what I mean? You can't like say it, everyone else needs to do it, and then, oh, but this is different because this happened to me. I see it as when because we were talking about basic human interaction, right? Can be any two people in any environment, and it goes like that. And but what you're saying is, um, and what I've come to is, and it's again, it's not etched in stone and fully achieved. It's a working process like everything. When it comes to, so say it's me and you. The bottom line is it doesn't matter who projected first, right? It doesn't matter because the only thing that matters is what's the last person going to do that had the energy thrown at them. And if that person isolates or in the best ways goes quiet, then those things can occur that you're talking about where may be a little uncomfortable, but it finds its proper place, and it doesn't. And the loop doesn't continue to run.
Yeah, 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 definitely. Um, yeah, I definitely have had my battles over the last couple years, and I think that's part of the refinement process of this awakening and ascension is that, and that you do have a soul family, you have your spirit family, all those things. Um, they can be anybody, and sometimes they test you, and it, it it used to be like, why are they testing me? You know, and then as you kind of keep getting better and better, you're just like, oh, they're testing me.
Hmm.
You know, and I think you kind of get to a point to where you can really have pleasant reactions in certain things to where you look back and you go, oh yeah, I would have been yelling and screaming, you know. So you really can turn it around. And yeah, yeah. So
This
you're
Go
pretty
ahead.
isolate, right? Where you're at. You guys, I'm looking at your background. Do you see a lot of stars where you're at?
uh we're in a small little town. Um and there's some, you know, 6-story condos. There's some
Okay.
lighting. So
Yeah, yeah,
you can see them. I mean, I could go into into the forest and probably see a lot more 20 minutes away or whatever. But
sure.
um, you were mentioning in the last 2 years, for you personally, that you've had a lot of transformation, uh, pattern, repatterning, repatterning, patterning. Um, does was that and given the context of what we're talking about, um, was that like a conscious, I'm sure that was a conscious effort by you. Do you see those things that you had to tame and bring into balance, distorted male programming and conditioning that you became aware of and then said, wait, I'm not to throw shots at the masculine. I'm just saying, in your experience, were these stereotypical attributes of that archetype? Um, would you say that's what it was?
Mm, no, not
Mm,
necessarily as much as it is just really pinpoint. It can be a little bit. You can,
mm,
but I feel like just in a personal response, I just feel like it was just getting wrapped up in the moment of wanting to convey an idea, right?
mm,
And to tell and to be able to tell that person, hey, I really thought about this and this what I'm gonna say really means a lot to me. And then realizing that, oh, I don't have to say it that way though, and pinpointing that the way I'm reacting or something like that isn't the most effective way, even though my heart was trying to
mm,
convey that and wanted to emphasize that that's not necessarily the way and not the most effective way. And contrary to my own philosophy of being upset with other people when they talked to me that way, right? To say, man, I didn't want to be talked to that way. I would much rather have somebody calmly explain something to me, than let it out. So, yeah, you know, um, and
are you finding that especially again recently, I guess recently is last year and certainly this last 2 months, are you finding one way or the other that you're speaking your truth more?
um, no, I wouldn't say more. I would say it's probably coming out more clearly, or I'm
Mm.
maybe more aware, but
But you're not suppressing. Um, and did you ever suppress?
not necessarily, yeah, kind of surprised, just maybe blocked it out and really got locked into some people that weren't, parallel with that. So, Yeah, that's always a typical, I feel like a typical human error, is just a misalignment with the people in our lives. And but it all happens for a reason too. And like they say. And
Hmm.
yeah, just
It sounds,
the,
it, go
the
ahead.
last year and a half though, I've noticed the people around me probably for some reason or another, even though I've been pretty much into what I'm into for a while, I feel like it's having an effect, a positive effect, and that as time's gone on, they're like, oh, this is consistent, and that it's becoming undeniable,
Hmm.
I feel like a lot of that too is just the energy that's hitting the planet.
Hmm.
It's a lot. And so people are having a harder time denying things or classifying it as this or that versus saying this is the whole being of who this person is. You know,
Hmm. Yeah,
so
that's another good point too. It's affecting everybody. I've been I'll be open. I mean, I've been a little bit surprised at, at the level of division, self-righteousness, um, irrational conviction, and polarity, polarization in as I've kind of moved my way back into social media, and observing things on issues that are out there. Now I realize a lot of that is psyops and put out there to aggravate people and this and that. But because of all that distraction, BS, sometimes I think we've got to remember that it is affecting everyone, and everyone is subject to change as a result of these energies. And if somebody wants to discuss this with me and say, well, what about the clones and what about this and what about that? It's still got to deal with this energy because this energy is bigger than there is all of it, right? So um, that's kind of one of the things that I pick up from you, and I'm thinking probably, or maybe I'm wrong, but because you said 20 years ago you went into yoga, but you weren't just going in there and posing. You were you were immersing yourself in all of it, right? And I think that's had some bearing on you. But in so in the regard to what you're saying, um, you know, acceptance, I guess, acceptance, allowance, humility, these things that tend to make the ride less bumpy because as we go back into the old loops, the ride gets bumpy very fast now and faster and faster. So that's really nice because we get a reminder very quickly. And listening to you, it's like you got to the point and said, I can smooth this thing out.
yeah. Oh,
And that speaks for itself. So like you were saying about people, um, I would imagine what you said, about what people are saying now after 5 years of this and that, that's probably equating to your personal interactions with these people as well. You're more accepted. They see more of you. They're more open, and it probably works both ways.
yeah, yeah. Or, you know, it, I feel like too, a lot of the people that weren't tuned into necessarily a social network, that they weren't tuned into spirituality or groups that were discussing, multidimensionality or any type of UFOs, UAPs, extraterrestrials. Now it's everywhere, whether,
Yep.
like you said, whether it's propagated or true. And so now when people are seeing people close to them that have been immersed in this, it's becoming like natural to connect with, at least the energy, I feel like. And they're seeing, like, they see the consistency and all that. And it's like Man, I saw the first light ship I saw was 30 years ago, and it's like I couldn't have that conversation, you know. I was 15. I was like, how
Wow.
do I have a conversation with my parents about this? You know, some of us were just totally like there was no way. And today it's a whole different world. I mean, just in that perspective, from how I discuss these things with my family and everything. Yeah, so,
Um, that's a good point though, because we things weren't talked about, right?
yeah.
That's not just UFOs. That's women's feelings. That's men's feelings. That's so much. And and maybe this is. I really believe that stepping into this energy is what expands the energy. And like I was saying on the previous show, but it's a space you step into that you just don't know what's going to happen. But it's out of where we were in every situation. Like even me, you sitting here, like in your example, I you know, did these shows for a few years, and then one day Morgan said you should have your brother on. My brother's 10 years younger than me, and so he would have been about 8 when I got out of high school. And I'd been estranged from the family. I mean, him and I had always gotten along well, and you know, we so he came on in 2019 or 20, and the first thing he said when he got on, he said, "You know, I never told you this, uh, but when I was, you know, 6 or 7, and we were coming home, I saw a ship in our backyard, and when we got there, I ran in the backyard, and there was a dude, and he described this guy."
Mm,
But I think about that, think about what you're saying, and think about it's the same thing. Just releasing that code, releasing that information unbridled and freely, without judgment, without interruption or impediment, is literally a living metaphor. You know what I mean? It could be also about, you know, a guy in the men's group speaking something that he's never been able, you know, never felt safe to, whatever the case is. So to me, it's kind of the same thing. Even the energy of you, like your example of saying, you know, I don't have to respond this way. I can go this way, or I can be quiet, you know. It feeds because it brings a direct alignment or correlation with what you're saying and what you're doing and being. You know what I mean? You're actually putting it to into the physical playground,
mm.
which is the real wild card to me. I mean, how do we know we couldn't all just be teleporting on our using our feet as hoverboards all
Yeah.
over the planet, and no one ever crashes into each other? I mean, hmm. So you saw a ship at 15 years old. Have you had any more encounters over the years? Because a lot of people that I've talked to seem to have, you know, it seems to be something that's throughout their life.
Um, yes, I've had a few, and um, about well, I lived in Utah for 5 years, and there's some really remote spots in Utah, and I lived in one of them. And so yeah, I did. I had a really interesting one. I didn't see any beings, but I was driving, and it was parallel with me on the highway, and I had three other people in the car, and I kind of was just seeing. I was driving, I was seeing it out of the corner of my eye, and I kind of kept telling myself it was a plane, and it kind of kept getting closer and closer and lower to the ground. And at some point, I said, "Do you guys see that?" And they said, "Yeah, yeah." And I said, what's going on here? This thing's following us or what?" And they're like, "I don't know." And I said, "Okay, I'm gonna stop. Is that okay?" And they said, "Yeah, let's stop." So I stopped on the highway and we got out and it stopped and it was pretty close. And it sat there for a minute, and one of the first things I remember thinking was, there is a being that's alive that's looking at me right now that I cannot see. It's like, and they want to look at us, and we're looking at them, so everything's neutral. And I was just like, this is cool. And what's really odd after it took off and did its up and out thing is the next day I don't think I thought twice about it. And
Right.
I don't know why that was. And I've thought about that. And the other time too. And anyway, it's not real important, but I kind of
No,
thought part of
that was a good point though about you said you got up the next day and didn't even think twice about it. I'll come
yeah,
back to that. I'll come back to that in a minute. Keep going. Keep
yeah, and
going.
I kind of felt like maybe there was a reason behind that. And maybe that was just because if I had gone and started chasing things that long ago, maybe it wouldn't have been right for me. You know what I mean? Or maybe I would have just given up or not gotten to this point of the ascension and the awakening that I'm at. And
Hmm.
but everything happens for a reason. And over the last 5 years, I've been watching them every day. So now, it's just like I see them every day. I see them up there at night. I see them all the time. Other people see them all the time. So we all know, it's not.
Yeah. Yeah.
But yeah,
Yeah. Out there where you're at, it's thick out there. Morgan and I stayed there in Ventura County in 2019 for about a week.
okay,
Uh, not too far, like maybe 10 blocks from the beach.
okay.
Somebody put us up. No, you brought up a good point. Um, and we'll just use ships, UAPs, whatever, as the context. Because again, it's the same pattern in a localized basis, connection, parents, siblings, partner, you know what I mean, as it is in the collective. So they've said they, um, including and I've mentioned this a few times on the shows, my stepfather in the mid 70s, who was with CIA, told me that they were there, but they can't give the information out because the people weren't ready for it. So my point is that we maybe another one of the programs, so to speak, or the patterns of behavior that we're breaking down is giving the benefit of the doubt to the other, our mirror, us, the you that is me and the me that is you, that they can handle it. Like that the truth is the truth, not the truth like, oh, I know this and you don't, or I see this and you don't. Not that truth. Just this is it. Right. And when you were telling that story, I made kind of went, oh, that works both ways. I mean, who's to say that the people of the world couldn't handle it? Well, it was a few days ago, I saw a piece of an interview, and I can't remember who it was. It was one of the people that's around Trump that's not a politician. No, I take it back. I know who it was. It
Okay.
was a guy named Chris Bledsoe, who's probably got the most. If you know who he is, Chris
I don't know.
Bledsoe.
I don't know yet. Go on.
Look him up, Chris Bledsoe. He's got his own X channel, but this guy's been around a long time, been documenting what's happening with him since 2008. It's probably the most credible person I've seen in that arena. Well, because of the activity on his property and with his family and with visitations and sightings and such, and he's filming every day for like 18 years, and he's just now starting to release this information because he was told not to, right? Essentially. And I'm talking NASA and DOD and, the whole nine yards. They respect him. So anyway, he was talking to this guy, and the guy says, have you, he said, I'm asked to go to these meetings because of my experience and the things that have happened to me. And I've sat in and, at the Pentagon, I've sat in over here.
Hmm.
And they were in a meeting, and I think the meeting was relatively recent, like say 3 months ago, so whatever, as this disclosure is starting to come out. And whoever the hierarchy officials that were there, they were discussing disclosure, right? And he said about half of them in the government want to, and the other half doesn't want to. And they said in that meeting, they turned to him and they said, "What do you think?" And he's the only non, uh, civilian. He's a civilian, and he said, "Well, it wouldn't." He said a ship could land on the White House lawn, and it was Biden was still there. He said Biden could come out and greet him. It gets blown all over the world, and everybody sees it. And the next day, we go back to work. That's a normal person. They still got to go to work. The wheels aren't going to stop on the world, you know. So you saying that kind of brought that up and reminded me of it. But it's the same thing, right? It's the same thing. If we're living in a realm where the esoteric knowledge of whatever you want to call it, those people are holding on to something and they're hoarding it and they're not uh, being transparent. What's the difference between that and me and my loved ones around me? So, in other words, that's his Toddism. Maybe we should stop bitching about what's being withheld from us and start being transparent with what's been withheld within ourselves because it's all energy.
Mm.
And as you said earlier, that direct truth is better than not knowing, right? I mean,
Oh yeah.
yeah.
Yeah, man.
And then back to what you said earlier too about, essentially, I always say go easy on yourself, go easy on everybody else because we're all going through the same damn thing. But yours was a little bit more eloquent, which, and I think a little more positive. Uh, I think we can give ourselves a pat on the back. We've made it this far, and I don't think anyone's at this stage like us is ready to leave. I mean, if we got to go, we got to go. But hell,
Yeah. Yeah, definitely.
big stuff going down. Not about to go down. Big stuff's going down every day.
Yeah, yeah. It seems exponential at this point. Do you feel like this last, I feel like since December, time has sped up. I mean, maybe give or take a couple days, but that were maybe, normal feeling days. But man, like especially last few weeks, I just feel like, holy moly, where did January even go? And everybody
Mm,
kind of says that sometimes, but I mean, really, I was like, January is over and it's felt like maybe a week
yeah,
just
I
jammed.
think I think you're right. I think we have been saying that over and over and over, and it has been true, and it's speeding up, no doubt, every time. And when you think you've just gone through the biggest tsunami that month that you've ever could, the next one's going to be 2% higher. The next one comes in and it's like monstrous. It's like 10 times the amount. But to what you're saying, there was a lady on a couple of shows a couple of days ago. It was the early show. Uh, she was in Wisconsin. I think it was her. Um, yeah. And she said, time's moving so fast. And she said, but at the same time, it slows. And what she was talking about was these episodes, like kind of like what we talked about today, like a discussion or a argument or debate or you know what I mean? Those points of pressure, right? Uh, that we have this pause. This you even mentioned this a minute ago, a while ago when we were talking about that. But even though it's moving really fast, we have this other thing kicking in where we don't have to move that fast or something where you can take a breath, you can pause, you can be in isolation. You know what I mean? And it's not going to end the world if you don't act in that second, which I think is again something that came through in what you were talking about in your own journey.
Yeah. Yeah, there's that. Definitely. Um, man, but yeah, tomorrow, February 1st, here we are. This month was quick.
Huge, huge month. Have you had any physical things going on in your body? Um, One thing that kind of showed itself in a greater way, and not just with me personally and with Morgan, but I saw it also in the peripheral out there. People having things, I don't know, you might say flare up in the body. Um, like the physical body itself as a consciousness is saying, I can't take this anymore. You got to deal with it, you know, and from the human vernacular would be like, ailments, illnesses, whatever, afflictions. But have you had that with yourself, and have you seen any of that going on with others?
Yeah, same thing. Yeah, people are talking about that. Friends, family, loved ones. People I see it in people at work. There's people that are walking they're like, I don't know why I'm sore today.
Hmm.
I don't know why my back's hurting today, or they got some random allergy that they never get. Yeah, exactly. Stuff's coming out, and I feel like a lot of that is happening just as we're processing everything that's going on and knowing that things aren't going to be the same and that we're not going to have the same life. And so I feel like a lot of us, that's what we're letting go of right now. I mean, if you just in the present is that, at some point life's not going to be the same as it is right now, just like it wasn't in December as it is right now. But in a couple months, like you said, that change when we think that increase could be a 2%, sometimes it's a 10 or a 20% the next month, and you're like, oh yeah, I wasn't expecting that. But and then everybody sees it and everybody's kind of affirming, you know, the same thing. And even more so now, I would say, especially over the last half a year, I feel like people are starting to come out and say these things in the workplace with friends out at a gathering or something like that. These ascension energies that are happening that people are maybe we're used to throwing it in the comments before or something like that, or actually starting to speak out
Hmm.
and say, I don't know why I felt like this that day. You know, so yeah, my my twin flame, it was like the last year it was crazy how she would get nauseous, right? We'd be sitting there just blah 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 blah, having a great laugh and ha ha ha. And she'd look at me and just go, uh. I just got really nauseous. And I'm sitting there going, whoa. And she'd go and run to the bathroom, and about 5 minutes later she'd look and there'd be a post that we just had a solar flare.
Yeah, yeah.
So
Particularly the women, they
that
seem to
happened to
be.
her about like 5 times in a row before I kind of got used to it of her going,
Hmm.
"Oh, I think we just had a solar flare because I'm nauseous." So these energies are hitting everybody, and yeah, I feel like people
Are
are.
you in a long distance relationship, or are you in the same town, or what?
No, I'm together with my twin flame. She's
You you live together.
pretty much cohabitate, yeah.
Okay, well there you go. Is she there now?
I have another place. No, and we have the same name.
What?
Yeah, so she's Daniela and I'm Daniel.
Oh wow.
And
Cool.
so when I met her a couple years ago, that's when I really started to look at this twin flame thing as a real thing and as, okay, it makes sense that this is somebody that has a ton of synchronicities with me. I mean, sure, in a karmic relationship, a normal karmic relationship, you have a couple similarities or whatever. Oh my gosh, Todd, if I could even explain to you like every synchronicity that her and I have, it's crazy. We're both Italian. We're both named Daniel, Daniela. We both have an art degree. We didn't know each, I mean, this is like ridiculous stuff that it's like, oh, this never happens. This must be the one. So, but yeah, I think she's in the other room or she had to take one of the youngsters somewhere, but
Hmm.
yeah, yeah.
We should get y'all on sometime.
That'd be great.
Those
Yeah.
stories need to be heard. You
That
know,
would be great. Yeah.
yeah, well, I say need. I mean, I cringe when people tell me you need to do this, but I mean, well, what's the difference? An individual, two individuals having a conversation going into space that we don't know what we're going to talk about, and everything's open, and you don't have to answer questions, but we can ask them. But and then to have it from the two people,
Sure.
because yeah, there's a lot to be said for that. And I'm not just saying that because I'm in the relationship I'm in with the person I'm in this relationship with. It's still energy. It's still the living word of the Vesica Pisces coming together. You know what I mean? It's still, and you know what I mean? It's a beautiful thing. And, it's, I would say something that really deep down everybody innately knows or wants or, you know, seeks. It's the
Yeah.
best thing in the world.
Are
To
you are you encountering a lot of couples that you think are really in tune with what's going on or with spirituality and the multidimensionality in general, or do you think it's more a lot of singles right now?
oh, I can say like in the travels that Morgan and I had over the years, we met a lot of couples. Some of those couples are still together, some are not. I think a lot of couples split and individuals split and all kinds of connections split in 2023.
Hmm.
It seems like the second half of 23. I, it's I come from the um, perspective that I respect everybody's reality. I don't know you. I don't know every part of you. You know what I mean? I mean, I don't.
Yeah, yeah.
Um, and like you were talking about, talking to people who aren't in these circles, in other circles, and you were bring this up or bring that up 5 years ago, and it's different now. But and I would say the same, even more so for couples, because I've looked at some couples and gone, wow, man, they're like peanut butter and jelly, and then 6 months later, it was a house of cards.
Hmm.
And then I see couples that I go, how the hell does that work? But I don't, but you know what I mean? Because I don't know
Oh yeah.
what I don't know them. And there's a one, there's another, but then there's a them. They could be, the cream of the crop. And I think the other reason I say that too is because, Morgan and I have been pretty public and we're not really we're private. You know what I mean? But in our work, we've been public over the years and shared things, not to the nitty gritty nth degree, but that we all read energy now, we all feel it. And some of the triggering aspects um, that occurred, some of the behaviors, some of the attitudes, and so on. And I'm not saying this in a mean way or a judgmental way. I'm just saying in a way of having learned. Um, I really understood that nobody knows her and I. Nobody knows. They can. They might have seen us reunite in the park and that video or any other time, but what I don't even know what it is. I can't describe it. And it's like everything else that we're talking about today, and I'm sure you and Daniela can relate to this. You know, we're all transforming and we're all changing and we're all moving into new territory, working with new structural components that we've never used before. And we're not using the old ones. So some connections existed like mine and probably yours before, and some are still here in this new kind of environment or atmosphere. Um, and you know, uh, it's funny because years ago, I used to tell Morgan, we're going to do it. We're going to do it. Or, we're going to make it happen. And she'd say, we're doing it. We're
Mm,
doing it. And so I think there's a lot of people doing it individually and as a couple. And maybe some groups are starting to take off. Um, but my feel on it is in all regards, it's not a process to force, to get rushed, to um, to alter your plans out of fear and in conformance with the old structure. It takes what's got us all of us here, and that's to like, oh, I mean, maybe nobody understands me, but I'm going this direction anyway. And now years later, there's a whole group of us, and that's even new. It's like, okay, well, how do we do this when we're all trying to figure out how it works, this new way works, that's how Morgan puts it. And that makes it very easy for me to understand. And I'm seeing it happen right now. It's happening with me. Um, but yeah, I don't know. I mean, there's a lot of individuals out there. One of those groups I would point out that I have tremendous respect for are these divine feminines in form that have made up 80, 90, 75, 80, 90% of these groups for since 2012 that don't always you won't often find them on a show like this. You won't often find them making loud posts, but they're always in the comments. No, they're always there. Many times they show up in the comments, and they are the true infrastructure of this grid. Um, and you talk about isolation. These women were isolated. And I think anyone that followed Soul Speaks 5D over the years saw many, many examples of those um, daughters, of the mother. So yeah, I think there's quite a few individuals that have stayed the course, and I think there's couples that are, you know, moving it along, and other templates as well. Yeah,
yeah, man.
yeah. Well, man, talk to Daniela, and I'd love to get a couple on here to
Yeah,
talk for an hour and a half and hear their story and see how deep we can go without making anyone too uncomfortable.
that'd be great, Todd. Thanks, man.
Hey, thank you, and thank you for showing up tonight and overall. And I will see you when I see you again. Best uh, blessings of grace to you and your family, and let's do it again.
Yeah, bless you, sir. Thanks, Todd. Have a great night, man.